All right, hello everybody. I'd like to cover a topic today that I think cuts really right at the heart of what we're here at RightsCon to talk about. I'd like to cover the current state of activism broadly construed, right? Anybody who's sort of fighting for a cause. Could be activist journalism, it could be nonprofits, but digital journalism and digital activism of various sorts. I'd like to cover the future of activism and what we really need it to look like in terms of being able to come together and more powerfully sort of join forces in ways that have not been previously possible. And I'd like to cover a new tool that enables exactly this. So what is the state of current activism? So, we're using things like Facebook. Things are constantly being, sort of trivially infiltrated. People are trying to coordinate things on Twitter. It's very problematic. There's things like Slack, for example, but you have these silos of these different groups, these different teams. There's not really, it's just not possible with these tools to have any sort of crosstalk between different projects and people trying to accomplish things. I mean, Slack is worth apparently $5 billion based on the idea that they're revolutionizing the way teams collaborate, and it's just a fucking chat room. But anyway, we could really use dramatically better tools, and I think that's what we deserve. So as I started saying, we have these sort of corporate tools. We have things that are closed source. Some things are open source, but a pain in the ass to use. Redmine. There's things that are privacy destroying in general, right? There's not a whole lot of encryption built into anything that we use other than messaging. And there's 50 messaging apps, and several of them are good. And you can't, do much else with software while remaining secure. If you do want to kind of invite someone into a group and start collaborating with them, it's generally all or nothing. They can, if there's somebody that you're not sure if you should trust, you either have to bring them in completely or keep them on the outside, and that's a problem. And in general, there's just not, when you look at sort of task management software or these tools that people are trying to use to kind of coordinate actions, there's not a whole lot of new stuff out there, and there should be. Now, when you look at the structure of kind of how nonprofits and various projects kind of connect with other people or other sort of, I was going to say other groups. There's not much connected with other groups, but the structure's just all wrong. There's probably many of us here who are in the same, on the same mailing list, but for for ACLU or EFF or something, and we would never know it. And why is that? Well, because there's not these online communities that are run by nonprofits or started by various projects that really empower us to kind of join forces with them, help to accomplish their goals and whatnot. So rather than having this sort of broadcasting out of messages and I don't know about you, but when I get an email from a nonprofit and it says click here to take action now, and the only thing it ever is a petition and then asking for a donation, and it's not any sort of richer type of working with them, I think that's pretty disappointing, and I think we can and must do better. So specifically when we're organizing with each other, being able to plan and strategize, being able to record the specific things that we need to do in an actionable format. Can't do that with messaging, and like I said, everything else is not secure. Being able to find people with the skill sets that you need in order to accomplish what it is that you're trying to do. As I alluded to, being able to kind of partner with other groups. Maybe they're doing similar things, maybe they're doing complementary things. That's a problem. I mentioned the all or nothing trust model that is problematic, and being able to share all sorts of other resources that we typically work with. That's really important. So, and lastly, for this slide, often when people are organizing, right, things start off with sort of a private stage. You're planning things, maybe it's very sensitive, and maybe later you have more of a public launch, more of a advocacy sort of thing you're trying to do, but you're worried about being infiltrated early on, or you're worried about the more sensitive parts of the early stages of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, and being able to have things be as private as you want or as transparent as you want in the same system would be really valuable. So of course, having things that are open source, you should be able to host things yourself. User friendliness is super important. And I'd like to talk about a tool that some of us are building. called Pursuance that helps us to accomplish these things that have the properties, or the system that has the properties that I just described. So Pursuance fundamentally at its core is end-to-end encrypted task management software and with other collaboration features. So we're building the software, but we're also building sort of a network of people and projects around that software. So we imagine this sort of federation of different groups that can assist each other in various ways that we'll get into, all within the same ecosystem. So when I think of like the core use of Pursuance kind of conceptually, like being able to have this sort of command center where you're planning what you're going to do, you're sort of assigning tasks to different people. Now maybe you're securely linking to to other resources, and there's other tools that you're using alongside Pursuance. One that we've been using that is pretty powerful is called CryptPad. It's basically end-to-end encrypted Google Docs. Not quite as polished, but it's pretty good. Now, at the end of a CryptPad link, you actually have like a sort of encryption key, so that and a decryption key, so that when you link someone to the document, they can see it and they can edit it. But it's very important that you get that link to them in a secure way. So, be able to use something like Pursuance to link people to other resources when necessary is important. And here's a screenshot of what it looks like. So. When you create a Pursuance, so the Pursuance system consists of different these sort of organizations or groups that are called Pursuances. When you create one, you specify the mission of that Pursuance, and that becomes the sort of top level or a root task where the idea is everything that is done within that Pursuance is done in order to achieve that top level goal, that top level mission. So you can assign tasks to individual people. You can set due dates. You can describe things in more detail so that people know beyond just like the title. Of course, you have a description of what people need and perhaps a link to say some document that people should add their findings to or what have you. Attached to each task is an encrypted chat room. So here we can see on the right panel. Here's the details of the task that people are discussing, and in the sort of middle view, you have a conversation where people are talking about, maybe they're getting clarification on what it is that they've been assigned, that they need to do. And if we sort of zoom in on that right panel, not only can we discuss the particular task that we're viewing the details of, we're integrating with Jitsi Meet so that like each task actually has its own sort of video chat room. So you could do video conferencing as well as textual chat. There's something we're integrating with called Hypothesis, which is another open source tool. It's very interesting. It allows you to kind of allows you to sort of organize annotations from like a certain so for example, let's say that on wikileaks.org there's a new document dump, right? And we say, okay, let's all go through those documents. And so suppose in Pursuance we say, okay, you go through these pages, I'll go through these pages, and we're carving up work that way. But with Hypothesis, you're able to kind of organize all of the annotations, all the sort of interesting findings, all in a single page that kind of links back to where those things were found. In general, with Pursuance, a key, things that are particularly sort of special are the ability to assign a task not just to a particular person in that Pursuance, in that, again, Pursuance sort of a group or organization, but you can assign a task to another Pursuance, another group. So, like one example that keeps coming up is there's certain people that like specialize in like FOIA requests or being able to kind of get information from the government, and those need to be written in a particular way in order to like really get anything, and instead of them just saying oh, we don't know what you're talking about, phrase it well so that you get what you're looking for. So being able to, there's all these police accountability groups that are very interested in Pursuance, and a lot of them need a FOIA request, but they don't have expertise. So to be able to say, okay, let's partner with one of these like FOIA activist Pursuances, and we'll assign a task to them to like help us with this FOIA request. So you can see how kind of expertise can sort of flow between Pursuances, have different groups helping each other out. Another thing you can do within Pursuance is and this is sort of optimized for the kind of use cases we have in mind, right? It's not just like a small team of people, but you should be able to have like lots of people in a pursuance. And when you have that, you may not know the people in there, you may not know their names, you may not know their skill sets. So in order to make this all scale, we're including a feature where after you've created a task, you can specify the skills necessary to complete that task, and then have the system automatically find someone in Pursuance, in the network, who has those skills, so that they can help you with that particular task. And of course, that makes possible this sort of self-healing thing that we're interested in, where anyone who's dealt with a bunch of volunteers knows that people can be flaky, especially volunteers, which is okay. But if you could sort of like assign a task to somebody, and then if they don't work on it for a few days, we're very interested in including sort of semi-automation sort of features where maybe the task is automatically reassigned to somebody who has the requisite skill set but is a different person. So without somebody having to manually see, oh wait, no one's worked on this for a while, maybe I should assign it to somebody else. There's a lot of that that's possible in an automated fashion that we're including. I've alluded to the kind of all or nothing trust problem that occurs with most software. We're including 6 sort of permissions levels. So if if somebody's interested in joining your Pursuance, but maybe you don't really trust them very much, you can invite them at the lowest permissions level within your Pursuance. And all they will be able to do is see and work on the particular tasks that you've assigned them. They can't see who else is in the Pursuance. They can't see what other people are working on. But that's at the lowest level. If you want someone to be sort of an admin and be able to invite other people or permanently delete things, you can just decide along the spectrum how many sort of privileges people should have. And I already covered the Jitsi Meet integration. So we care about anonymity. So with each kind of a server installation of Pursuance, by default, we're building in a sort of Tor hidden service. So this Pursuance, or Pursuance server, will be accessible as a Tor hidden service. Now they're called onion services, but using the Tor anonymity network. And hopefully we don't have to change this if there's not tons of abuse. But right now there's no email required. Once you get invited to a Pursuance server, you specify your username. Now, if you want email notifications, which are really useful, then you can specify an email address. But that's not required. And then, getting rid of the spying angle that is so problematic with the software that we typically use today. So being able to host Pursuance yourself if you would like, it's all open source. And then the end-to-end encryption is definitely an important part of what we're doing. So the server that you're collaborating with people through can see, oh look, Joe Blow 123 has been assigned task 17 in Pursuance number 5, and that's it. The server doesn't know, who who this person is, doesn't know what the task is that they're doing. Even the name, like if you create a private Pursuance where everything's encrypted, virtually everything's encrypted, the server can't even see the name of the Pursuance. I've already covered, again, a Pursuance is like a group or organization. In some cases, they're very broad. Some people are interested in environmentalism, or opposing trolls online or something like that. So if they wanted to link to Troll Patrol and say, okay, here's all the different ways that we can accomplish our goal of opposing trolls, then that's something that they could link out to. There's several projects that we're working with right now that are interested in using Pursuance. One is there's several police accountability projects. One's called the Concerned, and there's a very interesting group. They want to do telemedicine. Called Frontline Wellness United. Instead of assigning sort of a task to a volunteer, they want to assign a patient to a doctor. And so being able to do sort of video conferencing, being able to limit how much you trust someone, but get them into the system, but be able to kind of limit what they can see is very valuable. And in terms of other pursuances, we have like 1,800 people on our mailing list. There's various groups who are interested. We're very interested in the things that you might want to do with Pursuance, or the kinds of connections you might want to make. So ideas that you have, please bring them by. Talk to us afterward. We also have a booth tomorrow from 1 to 6 p.m. As our founder, Barrett Brown, likes to say, for the first time in human history, any individual can collaborate with any other individual. So I think it's about time that we start leveraging this. We have a Kickstarter campaign starting in about 1 week. Please tell everyone you know. And if people are interested in code contributions, developers, you can go to github.com/pursuanceproject. There's a lot of React code. But yeah, that's our tech stack. Any questions? Thank you. We're short on time, but any questions people have? One question that we always get is, isn't it a bad idea to create software that empowers people? Because then you're going to empower all the bad people. And so between us only inviting people to our servers that we trust for the foreseeable future and allowing them to invite people who they trust, and between the kind of limited, the permissions tiers that I mentioned, where you can have someone, you can make it so someone doesn't have too much sort of privileges, more than you want them to have. Plus, yeah, like having our sort of network of the non-Nazis. If you have open source software, anyone could use any, people could plan bad things using Google Docs. People could blah blah blah. Yeah, so obviously that's the case there. But yeah, like having people kind of cut off. You can have some isolated server. People are doing whatever they want to do. They'll be cut off from the rest of the ecosystem, so they won't really benefit from these network effects that are really powerful, that really drive this. But yeah, that's definitely the most common we get, but probably not from the kind of people who go to RightsCon. All right, anything else? Yes?
When can we start using it?
When can you start using it? That's a great question. So within the next month, we're starting a closed alpha. If you go to pursuanceproject.org, you can join our mailing list, and we're onboarding people from the mailing list and from our Kickstarter campaign, plus the kind of, but starting off with just very, very close people and ramping up exponentially over the next several months. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About the group chat. Is that encrypted, or are
Yes.
you just relying on? How are you encrypting that? Are you using an external service, or did you code it yourself?
We built it. So like the crypto that we're using is all like open source, and audited code, like audited crypto and or written by a crypto expert. We're not rolling our own crypto. Everyone knows about security, knows that's a bad idea. So we're not doing that. But we are using existing crypto libraries and built sort of encrypted Slack. We call it LeapChat, and actually, if you go to leapchat.org, that part is launched separately. So it's like ephemeral sort of chat rooms. But yeah, good question. All right, anything else? Thomas Drake.
I'm just curious, because it's particular focus on mine, is how do you define trust in this environment, especially in a virtual environment?
Right.
You have the ability to validate or verify someone through traditional means.
Right. Well, I mean, like in this case, it's like a matter of trust of what you want people to be able to see and what you want them to be able to do. So it's like, are you trusting them to see who's involved in the pursuits? Are you trusting them to see what all your plans are? Right. So if you don't want to trust them with that, and you just want to kind of start working with them, but not trust them with this other information, then that's where you invite them at the lowest permissions level. You can assign them a specific task. They don't know the broader context of what's going on necessarily, but you can and if you want, you say, hey, I want to be able to get to know somebody, or like before I really let them in, invite them to a video conference, right? And yep, or people could again be on the other side of the spectrum and have it be all anonymous and all encrypted and not see anyone's face or anything like that. But yeah, good question. But it has to do with what you can see and what you can do. Do you trust a person to invite someone to the pursuance? You can decide yes or no for each person.
I raise this because trust in collaborative environments, social networks, is particularly vulnerable in terms of risk to quote unquote bad actors, or actors that have other intentions, and they'll play that trust off within the social systems that are created.
Yeah, no, it's very hard. Like, if you have someone who, is the perfect volunteer and there's no sign that they're an infiltrator and, they're, working for some, part of some COINTELPRO type program, and they can go for 10 years and they just really care about the cause, it is very hard to detect that, and keep that kind of person out. But, if you want to run your pursuance in a particularly paranoid way and say, you know what, every person is a silo. Every person is, no, I'm the only person who can see the master plan. Each person does like a little piece and can't see what else is going on. You can do that if you would like. But, all right, anything else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.